So for your sophomore capstone project, I'm trying to explain to you different methods for gathering evidence. So now it's all about digging deeper, getting a magnifying glass, and going deep into that book that you found. The rest of this trimester is all about filling this pot up to answer this question as much as possible. What I'm going to show you right now is about 4 different ways that you can gather evidence. I have some experts that I would like to talk to that can tell you about their system when they have to write papers. Let's go, shall we? Miss Mills here is going to show us a system that she really loves to collect evidence when she writes papers.
I do. I have some examples of some different projects that I've been making over the past couple of years. And so once I find evidence that I really, really like and I think it's going to be useful, I have created a OneNote tab for my research paper. So you can see it right here. What I recommend and what I think works really, really well is to add a new page for every single resource that you find, right? So this first tab is called Running Shoes. It's an article that I found in the Gale Virtual Reference Library database. And then I went through and read the article and just wrote up a little short description of what was going on in the article. You could use the rest of this page to take notes, bullet points, whatever you think is interesting. You can also do what I did on this other resource here, which is, I really liked this whole article, and so what I did was I created a PDF from it, and I printed it directly into my OneNote page. So I've got...
And she critically read it to prove that she's actually reading it.
I did. So I printed the PDF directly into its own page, right? Because it's one resource, it gets its own page. And then just using my pen, but I just went through and highlighted with my pen here the important notes. So I wasn't having to take the notes, I was just keeping the document here so that I could go back and refer to it later. And just a couple of other pages. So I've got several different resources here. Again, using the, putting the citation in there so that you've just got that there with the resource, and then you know where your evidence came from, which is super critical to remember that. I love this way I've used many different methods for organizing all of the evidence that I find.
Let's head over to Mr. Legrand and see how he likes to gather his evidence. Here is Mr. Legrand talking about the system that he has done to write his master's in history. Took him 1.5 years, 2 years?
Year.
To write.
All right, hello everybody. So, if I'm doing a project and I find a book that works for me, I often look for the section of the book that works for me, and when I'm there, I read through, and if I find 4 or 5 pages that are really good, like I like pages 234 to 239, I will photocopy those pages. I will also photocopy any footnoting that happens to be in the back that goes with those 2 pages. This is footnote number 1 for chapter 7. So if I'm in chapter 7 and I like that section, I'll photocopy that section, and I'll also photocopy any footnotes that go with it. Oh, I most certainly can explain what a footnote is. This little paragraph right here, at the end of the paragraph, it says number 12. What that's telling us is that this author wrote this paragraph from sources that he has included in this book under number 12. So if we turn to 12, we can see what book or article or piece of evidence this author used to write this paragraph. And so sometimes, particularly if I'm looking for primary sources, that might be the primary source that this author used. So I flip to the back and I read, what does footnote 12 tell us? And I get to a footnote 12, and I find out that that idea came from an author named Stephen Zunes in August 28, 2009. That doesn't tell me a lot, but if I flip to the bibliography, I'll figure out the rest of that source. It'll probably tell me the name of that source, who published it, and then I can go find it. So it's a way of hunting down sources. Once I've done that, I photocopy my pages, I'll read through and I'll annotate. I'll say, wow, this paragraph right here is really good for me, for my main point number 1. So I'll write that, I'll take my notes about it, I'll cut it actually out. On the back of it, I'll write where it came from.
Just like you did here on this one.
Yes, just like that one. On the back, I'll write where it came from, I'll write the source, and then I'll actually put it physically in the folder labeled main point number 1. Okay? When this folder gets very, very big, I realize, wow, there's too much in there for one main point. I go through and I start saying, what are the sub-points? How can I break this down into separate categories? Maybe come up with 4 separate categories. And then I relabel them and put them into more categories. Main point number 1, category 1.
Wow, awesome. I would totally, this would be the method that I would like.
And then when I'm finally done, the last bit I'll take is when I have, say I have 10 pieces of evidence inside this folder. And I say I have enough to write category 1, main point 1, my 10 pieces of evidence. I'll take them out and I'll say, all right, which of the 10 should go first? That one should go first. Which should go second? That one should go second. Which should go third? This one goes third. And then I just write in between. I introduce the idea, talk about my source. Connect the source to the next one, talk about this source. Connect it to the next one, talk about this source. And so I basically build a plan to the point where when I finally write, I'm not really writing very much. I'm just kind of writing connecting sentences between ideas.
And if you want to get access to a photocopier here, we can absolutely give you all the access you need to
Hey.
a grand. Cool idea.
Thanks.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you now about my system for collecting evidence, which is kind of like this whole big bucket here. When I collect evidence, I like to have a big stack of note cards. So I have my source cards, and I label my source cards. I used to label them with a number, but you can label them with a with a color or a symbol as well, or a number 1, 2, 3, 4. So these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different source cards. For example, this came from Smith Jones' Birth of a Civilization. So then I take my fact. I got this one from actually Smith Jones. And I have all of these different facts now laid out like this. I feel really comfortable with having about 60 facts. I'll probably only end up using about 30 in my paper. Then I'm going to take my source cards out of here. I keep my source cards separate. And what I really like about this method is I'm really kinesthetic, which means that I need to like kind of move things around. I can't really do things on a computer because I guess I can, but it makes me feel really confined. So I have all these 60 note cards laid out, and what I can start doing when I'm writing my paper or developing my thesis is finding the things that are similar. Even though these are source cards, they're not necessarily similar. So I might find that this map that I cut out and this and this piece of evidence here and here and here really fit together. And then I find that this really fits together with this and this and this. This card doesn't actually even make a difference at all, so I'll throw this one away. Now I have my paragraphs. So I have now 1 paragraph, 2 paragraph, and 3 paragraph. And just like Mr. Legrand's system, I could now write in between each piece of fact, connecting them with some analysis to my thesis, and I have my whole paper written. Okay, here's another method for taking notes, and I think it's a really good one. Students that I have found really, really like it. You have to use EasyBib note card. Come with me. I'll show you over here. You can see right here. So EasyBib has this note card taking system. It's just like the note card system that I showed you, but it's online, and it does a really good job of keeping track of your sources. And what's really awesome about this is you can manipulate the note cards and push them together and move them together, just like I did when I was showing you the note card method. And then the other cool thing is you can click a button and it automatically moves the whole thing to an outline. So you're already having an outline printed off on Word that you can just fill in the transition sentences and the analysis to support your thesis. So we have a free subscription to this for a month, and if you like it, we can have it for maybe till the end of the year, or it costs like $5 for you, or maybe like $20 for you to buy. So it's something that you have to buy, but it might be really worth it if you want to use this system to learn how to do it. And this is how you would actually make a note card here. And then you can just, once you put in your sources, you can just, it's a drop-down menu, and it automatically connects each note card with each source that it comes from.